Okay, today's project. I'm in about a 40-year-old mobile home that I own. And my son is going to move into it. So we're going to redo the floor. And after tearing out the carpet, this is what I found. It's all rotten in here. It's gotten wet at some point in the past. And so we need to tear this out, put new subfloor down, get it nice and fairly flat for the new. We're putting in laminate flooring, just some cheap stuff. Now this isn't, you know, a high-dollar home or anything like that. Otherwise, the project could probably be a little more extensive, something like that. Anyway, I'm going to show you how to rip this out, get some new subfloor down, so you can do that. I've already worked on several pieces of this house. And I've got a leftover piece of 3/4 inch subfloor here, tongue and groove OSB that I'm going to use, and it's kind of cut up. I know over on this end I've got my narrowest point is 17 3/4. So what I want to do, I really actually need to come up into here. So let's see where 17 3/4 comes out at. About there. And if you have a T-square that you can use for straight edge, squaring things up, get that over to a mark, get her all squared up. It looks like it'll get rid of the majority of the bad floor in here. Still a little wavy, and like I said, this isn't perfect, but it's going to make a lot of difference. I know I've got a floor joist right here. I can see some staples, so this is somewhere in here is where we're going to run. We'll cut all the way back up to the vanity here, which you can't really see back in this corner. What we'll do is just cut right along the floor joist. That'll give us a good stopping point. What you need is a reciprocating saw, sawzall, whatever. Need to do a little electrical stuff too here, but now on these sawzalls, there's a lot of little tricks, but if you get flat with it, you can cut in without having an edge or a hole to go through. You can get started cutting a hole by just laying it real flat and then working your way down. So we'll start that. Cut that over that floor joist. You can feel it under there. Oh, look at that. Found me a nickel. Be 5 cents less my son has to pay me to do this. That's how you work down into it with a sawzall. Another thing I can use is a circular saw, skill saw, and I've got that out in the truck. I may use that. You can set it to depth and run right across there pretty quick, but I wanted to show you how to do this with how to get started in a hole with a sawzall. Get started cutting. Go right up to the floor joist there. Now I can feel the tip of my blade over here somewhere, and I can see by the staple there's a floor joist here, and I can feel that tip of that blade hitting that floor joist. So what you want to do is start working your saw up to where you're cutting straight up and down. Right up against that floor joist. And you can come on this side. And you can cut, you can kind of feel where the difference is in the material that you're cutting, and you can cut right across the top of that floor joist without really cutting down into it and ruining the integrity of the support. Through it. Maybe not quite, I'm still on that side, I guess. Do it now, and let's continue along. Little flat bar here. Work it down in there, you can pop that right up. Now because it's been water damage along this wall, it'll break right off. Once I get it broke off, I can see what's back there, I can see exactly where the floor joists are, then I can make another cut along there to straighten everything up. Just like so. And that actually broke away fairly clean. And a lot of this stuff's just junk. That's the problem with these old manufactured homes, mobile homes. They use this, what you call particle board in them. And as soon as that stuff gets wet, it's just basically sawdust. That's all it amounts to. So there's that first part. The one thing you do have to worry about using a sawzall, especially one with a long blade like that, is hitting something that's underneath there. If you're not sure what's underneath your floor there, you might want to use a reciprocal saw, or not a reciprocal, circular, like a skill saw or something. But as you can see, there is an air duct under there. Now I didn't get into it. My blade wasn't quite long enough, luckily. But it's something you got to be mindful of. not a bad idea to use a skill saw and just barely cut through there. But I'll come back when I get the rest of this cut out, show you how to get everything prepped for the new board. Okay, here's a couple little tips and tricks. I got this all cut out, ready for the new piece to go in, but right here, when I put this block in, which what I've done is, what you need to do, anywhere where you have a, what I would call a horizontal edge, you need a block in between your floor joists so that your subfloor doesn't sag. Now if this were new construction, it wouldn't be that big of a deal because you would be running tongue and groove subfloor right here, and so your next piece would slide into the groove with the tongue and it would support itself across between floor joists. But because we've cut out the old stuff, there's not a groove there to put that tongue in, so it's not going to support itself. So you need blocks in between each floor joist and on the edges. As you can see over there, I got one this side. They had already put that other piece in there, so I got half of that floor joist there. But my problem is this is sagging real bad right here. So this side of my block is, oh, a good 3/4 of an inch below where I want it. So I need to bring that up, but there's no way to get under there and pry anything up to get that block to come up. So what I do, you can take and run a screw in right here into your block, then get a screw ready to go here where you want to screw this in, and then you can take a flat bar like this and pry that up. So that took away that bow right there in that piece of particle board, and it brought my block up flush with this floor joist, and I can hold it there while I screw this in. And then take the screw out and actually use it for another one to go into the block. Now something else I like to use and point out is I'm using a Torx head screw, or like a star bit, I guess some people call them. But using these versus Phillips head screws is the cat's meow, man. I mean, these are the greatest invention since sliced bread. So they don't strip out, they go in a lot easier, and then using an impact gun works really well too. Put a few more blocks in here. Now I've measured all these and cut them and stacked them in order, so I know where each one goes without even measuring. Put that little piece of wood there in the way. Okay. I'll put the rest of these blocks in and get back with you in a second. Okay. I've got all my backing blocks in. I've got my piece of subfloor ready to go in. I cut it all and measured it. Don't think I need to show anybody that if you can't figure that out. You just take measurements and transfer them onto your piece. But anyway, getting ready to put this in. I like to use subfloor adhesive. This is liquid nails, but just about anything will work. They got several products out there for subfloor. Just helps eliminate squeaks and movement between the different pieces of wood. So I'll get this glued up, get her screwed down, and I like to use screws. They hold better. I'm using 1.5 inch, 10 by 1.5 inch Torx screws. A little better right here. And they got the Torx head on them there, a T25. Anyway, we'll get that real quick and okay, now we're basically ready for laminate. That's pretty self-explanatory stuff. The instructions are on the box. I don't need to really show anybody how to do that, but there is a couple little tricks for cutting corners and stuff, inside corners, that I will show you guys here in a minute. So I'll get all that set up and be back. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little pointer on cutting out holes. This technique can be used for cutting out holes around walls, doorways, anything else like that. This one's a pretty good example, so I'll use it. So go ahead and line your piece up endwise, like over here by the wall where it's going to be, and then you can mark where your side cuts you want. Now I'm giving it a little bit extra just so it makes the vent fit in there better. Go ahead and square these off. Now you want to measure from your lip here. That's your finished edge. And we're probably 4 7/8 to the edge of the hole. So I'm going to go about 4 5/8, give it a 1/4 inch, just for give the vent a little bit more room to fit in there. So 4 5/8. You want to measure from your finished edge here on the board. 4 5/8. And something else I'll do if I'm doing something that's I really need to be accurate on my measurement. Using the end of my tape sometimes isn't the easiest way to do that, to get a super exact measurement. I'll pull it out here to 10 inches and start measuring from 10 inches and line my 10-inch mark up with the edge of the board, and then go 4 5/8, which would be 14 5/8 right there. On flooring and stuff like that, it's not that big of a deal, but if I'm doing trim work or real precise stuff, that's how I'll make that measurement. But anyway, we'll throw this one up at the end of the board, make our marks. Now I'll show you how to cut this out and how I make that cut. Okay, so this is how I make these kind of cuts. I use a table saw. Now normally you would want your blade to be just barely above the surface of your material, just for safety reasons, but because I'm cutting this kind of stuff, I want this angle right here from flat and the angle of the blade to be the sharpest angle that I can get, instead of, like, if you had your blade lower to be a real shallow angle, I want it to be a real steep angle, so that my cuts in these corners are, I'm not getting a big bunch of overcut here. So the next thing I'll do is I'll measure from the edge of my material over to my line. I've got 3 3/4. Now I want that to be this side of the blade here. So I use my tape, go out to 3 3/4 to this side of the blade, set it up there. Basically I'm going to do a plunge cut from the back side. So we'll do this. Now to come off of that cut, I just lifted my board up, just straight up. You can also do it if you're coming in from this end. When you get to this point, you just lift it up and take it off. Now we need to remove the fence for these other 2 cuts. And basically what we're going to do is just eyeball it right along our line. We want to make sure we're trying to be as square as possible. And you can kind of adjust that as you go in. And just cut right along your lines. Now the reason I like to use a table saw for this kind of stuff versus, say, like a skill saw or a jigsaw, both of those cut on the upstroke, and so you're going to get what I call blowout along these edges, which is where the blade's coming up and it's ripping this material out. The reason I like to do a table saw is because your blade's spinning the opposite direction. It's actually cutting on the way down, so all your blowout, if you have any, will be back here. That preserves the face of your material. Anyway, just one pointer on how I cut laminate flooring. Thanks for watching.